Life was coming at me fast. Just a few months ago, I thought I had time to plan, time to build my future, time to take things at my own pace. Then Megan, my fiancée, told me she was pregnant. We weren't planning on having kids this soon, but here we were. It was early, she was just over a month along, but we both knew what it meant. We couldn't exactly keep the engagement on hold anymore. The families, especially hers, wanted us married before Megan started showing. So, the wedding was set. Just 6 weeks of chaos, expenses flying left and right, and people telling me what needed to be done yesterday. I work a corporate job at a real estate firm, but we're not exactly rolling in it. My salary covers the basics, and I inherited 2 apartments from my late Uncle Frank that I rent out for extra income. They've always been my safety net. I had plans for those places. Someday we'd sell one and use the money to buy a bigger home for the family. But right now, I wasn't thinking about future investments. I was drowning in bills. Megan's parents had generously offered to help with some things, but even with their support, it felt like I was bleeding money. "Have you called the florist yet?" Megan asked earlier that day, her voice tight with worry. "I will," I said, trying to keep my cool. "And the caterer?" "They said they need the final payment by Friday." "I've got it covered." I lied. The truth? I didn't have it covered. Between the photographer's new rates, the last-minute tux alterations, and the absurd fee the venue was charging for overtime, I was scrambling. Megan didn't know just how bad it had gotten. I couldn't tell her not when she was already stressed and hormonal. I kept telling myself I'd find a way. I always did. But even I knew I was running out of options. That's when Ryan called. Ryan's been my best friend since high school. He's the kind of guy who always seems to find a way to turn any situation into a party. When I answered the phone, he didn't even wait for me to say hello. "Dude, you sound like someone died," he said. "Not dead," I replied. "Just buried under wedding shit." Ryan laughed. "Man, you're marrying Megan, not the IRS. Why the hell are you so stressed?" I sighed. "Expenses, man. Everything costs more than I budgeted for. Every time I think we're done, something else comes up. Sounds rough. So, what are you doing about it?" "What do you think? I'm working extra hours, cutting corners where I can." "Stop," Ryan interrupted. "You're going to give yourself a heart attack. Listen, I've got a solution. We hit the casino tonight." I blinked. "A casino? Seriously?" "Yeah, seriously. Think about it. You're one lucky streak away from covering those bills. Hell, you might even win enough to pay for a honeymoon upgrade. Plus, you need a night out, man. You're way too tense." I hesitated. Ryan wasn't wrong about the tension. My chest had felt tight for days, and sleep was a distant memory. The idea of getting out for a few hours, just letting loose, had its appeal. "You think I'll win big, huh?" I asked, half joking. "Hey, anything's possible. But at the very least, you'll get a break from this nightmare. Come on, what's the worst that could happen?" Famous last words. The casino was about 45 minutes outside the city, one of those glitzy places designed to make you forget what time it was. Neon lights, the sound of slot machines chiming, dealers shouting bets. It was sensory overload from the moment we walked in. Ryan led the way, weaving through the crowd like he'd been here 100 times before. "This is where the magic happens," he said, gesturing toward the blackjack tables. "Start small. Get a feel for the game." I nodded, though my nerves were firing on all cylinders. I wasn't a gambler. Sure, I'd played poker with the guys a few times, but nothing serious. Still, I figured I could handle a couple of low-stakes hands. I cashed in $200 and took a seat at one of the tables. The first hand was a winner. I hit 21 on the second card. "Nice," Ryan cheered, clapping me on the shoulder. "See? Beginner's luck." Over the next hour, the luck continued. I won a few rounds at blackjack, then moved to roulette and doubled my money on a couple of spins. Before I knew it, I was up over $1,000. "Damn, man," Ryan said, grinning from ear to ear. "You're on fire." I couldn't help but smile. The weight that had been crushing me all week started to lift. Maybe this was the break I needed. Maybe, just maybe, I could turn this into something bigger. "We should hit the higher stakes tables," Ryan suggested. "You're in the zone. Ride the wave." I hesitated. This was more money than I'd ever made gambling, but Ryan's words echoed in my head. Ride the wave. If I kept going, I could pay off the caterer, the florist, maybe even stash some extra cash for after the wedding. "All right," I said, pocketing half of my winnings and keeping the rest to bet. "Let's do it." High-stakes blackjack was another beast entirely. The players were serious stone-faced, calculating, and the bets were steep. I felt out of place but kept my cool. The first few hands went well enough. I didn't win big, but I didn't lose much either. But then the tide started turning. A bad hand wiped out half of my chips. Then another. My winnings dwindled, and the knot in my stomach tightened. "Just a rough patch," Ryan said, trying to reassure me. "You've still got plenty of time to turn it around." But I wasn't so sure. I could feel the pressure building again, the same suffocating pressure I thought I'd left at home. I couldn't afford to lose now, not after coming this far. I placed another bet, this time bigger than I should have. The cards came down, and I lost. Panic clawed at my throat. I needed to win. I needed to get that money back. I wasn't walking away.
Not yet.
20. The stack of chips I'd placed in front of me was swept off the table like it never existed. My stomach clenched, and I forced a tight smile, pretending it didn't bother me. It was just one hand. But in reality, it wasn't just one hand. It was like the walls of the casino shifted around me, the air getting heavier. Just a couple of hours earlier, I was walking on air, believing I'd hit some kind of cosmic jackpot. Now the universe was showing me just how cold it could be. Ryan was still beside me, his buzz fading fast. He nudged me and whispered, "All right, man, that sucked, but you've still got most of your winnings, right? Maybe it's time to cash out. You're still ahead." Yeah, I muttered, barely listening. I wasn't ready to walk away. I couldn't shake the feeling that I could turn things around. I had to. How could I walk out after losing that much? I was supposed to be leaving with thousands, not watching it all disappear. I tightened my grip on the remaining chips in my hand. "Let's just do a few more rounds," I said, my voice steady but thin. Ryan frowned. "I don't know, man. You were on fire earlier, but—" "I just need to get back in the zone," I interrupted. "It's a rough patch. Happens to everyone." Ryan didn't look convinced. He ran a hand through his hair, glanced around the room, and sighed. "All right, but don't say I didn't warn you. Don't go nuts." I didn't go nuts right away. I eased back into it, betting conservatively. A few hands went my way, but it wasn't the same. The cards felt colder now. My chip stack was shrinking with each passing hand, and the tension in my chest was building like a storm cloud. "You're playing scared," the guy across the table said. He was some middle-aged dude in a suit, clearly irregular. He gave me a smug grin as he stacked his chips. "You can't win like that." I shot him a glare. Who the hell was this guy to lecture me? Still, his words stuck. Maybe I was playing scared, holding back because I didn't want to lose more. But that strategy was killing me. I needed to take control again. The next hand, I doubled my bet. The cards came down 17 for me, a 9 showing for the dealer. I hit and pulled a 4, bringing me to 21. My heart jumped as I dragged a small stack of chips back my way. It was a win, but not enough to calm the panic that had settled deep in my gut. The next few rounds blurred together. Wins and losses traded places, and the knot in my stomach tightened with each bet. I wasn't losing fast, but I wasn't gaining either. The momentum was gone. It felt like the house could see right through me, waiting for the perfect moment to pull the rug out. Then it happened. I made a stupid, reckless double down, hoping for a miracle. The dealer flipped a face card and hit 20. I was done. "Fuck," I whispered under my breath. Another stack of chips vanished. I was now down nearly $10,000, and that sinking feeling was clawing at my throat. Ryan leaned in. "Dude, maybe you should take the L and head out. You've still got cash left. No shame in walking away." I shook my head. "I can't leave like this. I just need one big win." He sighed, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're chasing losses, man. That's how they get you. Don't be that guy." "I'm not chasing losses," I snapped, though even I didn't believe it. I know I can win it back." Ryan didn't push the issue, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. He took a few steps back, crossing his arms as he watched me place another high bet. His expression said everything. "You're in over your head." That's when things really unraveled. The next hand wiped me out again. Then another. Before I knew it, I was sitting there with empty pockets, staring at a table that had taken everything I'd won earlier. The initial $200 was gone. The $1,500 in winnings was a distant memory. The dealer's polite, neutral expression did nothing to mask the gravity of what just happened. I felt sick. My entire body buzzed with shame and desperation. I thought I could handle this, that I was different from the poor bastards who got cleaned out in these places. But now I was just another statistic. "I'm out," I mumbled to Ryan. "Finally," he muttered under his breath, though there wasn't much relief in his voice. We walked out of the gaming area and into the casino lounge. The bright lights and noise of the slots grated on my nerves. My mind was racing, tallying the damage. I'd lost enough to pay for the entire wedding budget. Hell, I'd lost more than that. And the worst part was, it wasn't over. I couldn't let it end here. I needed a plan. Ryan grabbed a beer from the bar and turned to me. "So, what now? You gonna call it a night?" I shook my head, barely meeting his gaze. "I need to get that money back." Ryan's eyebrows shot up. "You're kidding me? You're gonna go back in there?" "I have to," I said quietly. "I'll figure it out. Maybe. Maybe I can borrow some money for another round." Ryan's face hardened. "You've already lost thousands, man. What the hell are you thinking? You want to dig an even deeper hole?" I clenched my jaw. He didn't understand. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about pride, about not being a complete fucking failure. Megan didn't even know I was here. If I went home now, broke and humiliated, I'd have to face her, lie to her about why the wedding funds were gone. I'll get it under control, I said, more to myself than to him. Ryan shook his head in frustration. Do what you want, but don't call me when you hit rock bottom. With that, he walked off, leaving me standing alone under the flashing neon lights. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through contacts. I didn't care who I had to call, someone would lend me the cash. I sat on the edge of my bed, I just needed phone in hand, heart pounding. It was early, barely 7 a.m., but I couldn't wait any longer. I needed money, and I needed it now. I scrolled through my contacts, second-guessing each name. Who would lend me a couple grand without asking too many questions? I landed on Pete, a guy I hadn't seen in a while, but who still sent the occasional holiday text. He'd done well for himself after college, bought a house last year, probably had cash to spare. The phone rang a few times before he picked up. Yo, Alex? Man, it's been a minute. What's going on? Hey, Pete, I said, forcing my voice to sound casual. Yeah, it has been. I wanted to catch up. How've you been? Can't complain. You? Heard you're getting married soon. Congrats, dude. Thanks, man. Yeah, it's coming up fast. I paused, feeling my throat tighten. I needed to get this over with. Actually, that's kind of why I'm calling. We hit some unexpected costs. You know how weddings or everything costs more than you budget for. Pete laughed. Man, tell me about it. My sister went through the same thing. Caterers, flowers, all that crap adds up. Exactly, I said. Look, I hate to ask this, but do you think you could loan me a couple grand? Just for a month or two. Once we get past the wedding, I'll pay you back, no problem. There was a brief pause on the other end. Yeah, I guess I can do that. You good for it, though? Of course, I said, laughing nervously. It's just a cash flow issue right now. You'd be helping me out big time. All right, I'll send it later today. Venmo good? Perfect. Thanks, Pete. I owe you. I ended the call and exhaled, feeling both relieved and disgusted. Pete was only the first. I wasn't stopping at 2 grand. Over the next few hours, I reached out to more people. Old friends, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in a year, even a former coworker who owed me a favor. I spun the same story to each of them: wedding costs, short-term loan, I'll pay you back soon. Most of them agreed, though not without hesitation. I could hear it in their voices. They didn't know the real reason I was asking, and I intended to keep it that way. By the afternoon, I'd scraped together close to $20,000. It wasn't enough to cover everything I'd lost, but it was enough for another trip to the casino. I told myself this was my shot at redemption. I'd win it back, pay everyone off, and no one would ever have to know how deep in the hole I really was. That night, I walked back into the casino alone. I didn't tell Ryan I was going. He'd seen the crash coming last time and had already pulled away. I didn't need his judgment. I just needed to focus. I cashed in $10,000 and headed straight for the high-stakes tables. No more messing around with low bets. I needed big wins to turn this around fast. The first few hands went well. I doubled my bet on blackjack and hit a perfect 21. I moved to roulette and nailed a couple of straight-up bets. My confidence started to return. This was it, my comeback. I was back in control. But control is a dangerous illusion in a place like this. The cards turned cold. The wheel betrayed me. I lost one round, then another, and before I knew it, half my chips were gone. Stay calm, I muttered under my breath. You can still fix this. But the spiral had already begun. I kept doubling down, chasing the wind that never came. Hours later, I stumbled out into the parking lot with empty pockets and a sick feeling in my gut. The $20,000 was gone. The next morning, I woke up in a daze. The panic hit me immediate like a freight train slamming into my chest. I was out of money, and I still owed my friends. They'd start asking questions soon. I couldn't let that happen. I had to act fast. I pawned what I could: my watch, a gaming console, some electronics. It wasn't enough. Not even close. That's when I made the call I'd been dreading. I put my car up for collateral on a loan. The loan officer didn't ask many questions. He didn't need to. As long as I had the title, he was happy to hand over the cash. I walked out of the office with $15,000 and a gnawing sense of dread. This is temporary, I told myself. You'll win it back and buy something even better. Megan noticed I was slipping. I tried to play it cool, but she wasn't stupid. You've been really off lately, she said one evening as we were watching television. Is everything okay? Yeah, just work stress, I said quickly. The market's been rough. She gave me a long look. You sure? You've been coming home late, and you barely talk anymore. I'm fine, I insisted, forcing a smile. Just a lot on my mind. She didn't push further, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. When the car loan money ran dry, I knew there was only one option left. I had to tap into the apartments. Those properties were my safety net, the inheritance my uncle had left me. I'd promised myself I'd never touch them, unless it was for something important like buying a home or starting a business. But desperation has a way of breaking promises. I called a shady lender I found online. He didn't care about my reasons. As long as I had collateral, he was willing to deal. By the end of the week, I'd signed off on a high-interest loan secured by both apartments. This is the last time, I told myself as I walked out of the office. One more shot. That's all you need. But the casino had other plans. I lost everything in a single night. The money, the apartment sit was all gone. My phone buzzed constantly with texts and calls from friends, lenders, and loan officers. Everyone wanted their money back. I couldn't face them. I couldn't face anyone. I was trapped in a nightmare. $35,000. The number echoed in my head like a bad joke. $135,000 money I didn't have, money that wasn't even mine to lose. It was everything. The $50,000 I'd first blown that night with Ryan. The $20,000 borrowed from friends. The $15,000 loan I took against my car. And the final nail, the apartments my uncle had left me. Gone. Every last cent. I sat in my car in the casino parking lot, shaking. I couldn't feel my hands anymore. It was like my body had gone numb to shield me from the crushing reality. This wasn't just a mistake I could shrug off. It was financial suicide. I gripped the steering wheel tighter and stared at the neon glow reflecting on the windshield. My mind raced with thoughts of how to fix this, but no answers came. There were no more tricks up my sleeve. I'd run out of lifelines. This isn't real, I whispered. This can't be real. But it was. And the debt collectors wouldn't care about how unreal it felt. I don't remember walking back into the casino. One minute I was in the car, and the next I was standing under those flickering lights again. The noise was deafening. Slot machines blaring, laughter, clinking glasses. It all blended together into a disorienting hum. I stumbled to the blackjack tables, my head spinning. I didn't have any money left, but I couldn't stop myself. I was still chasing the high, still convincing myself there had to be a way out. That's when I felt a presence beside me. "You look like shit, buddy." I turned to see a man standing there mid-40s, well-dressed but with a predatory gleam in his eyes. He had the kind of smile that didn't reach his face. The kind of smile that told you he was always 2 steps ahead. "Who the hell are you?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Call me Mike. I'm someone who can help if you want it." He nodded toward a quieter section of the casino. "Let's talk." I hesitated but followed. What else did I have to lose? We ended up near the bar, away from the tables. Mike leaned against a pillar, eyeing me like a vulture circling a wounded animal. "So," he began, "you're in a bit of a jam. Lost your ass tonight, huh?" "Yeah," I muttered, not wanting to get into specifics. He chuckled. "Don't sweat it. Happens to the best of us. But here's the thing. You don't have to let this ruin you. I know guys who've been where you are and walked out with a smile on their face. All they needed was a little support." I crossed my arms, narrowing my eyes. "What kind of support are we talking about?" Mike leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "I can front you some cash. Enough to get back in the game. We're talking real money, 20, 30 grand. You play smart, you could double it, maybe more." "And what's the catch?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Collateral. It's business, after all. Maybe you've got a future paycheck I can hold. Or someone who'd vouch for you." I let out a bitter laugh. "I don't have shit. No paycheck, no family that's gonna back me." Mike's smile tightened. "Everyone's got something. You're telling me there's nothing left in your life worth staking? Come on, think about it." I shook my head. "I'm not interested." His expression hardened. "Listen, man, I'm giving you an opportunity here. You walk out with nothing, and those debts hanging over your head, they're gonna catch up with you, fast." "Yeah? And what happens if I take your deal and lose anyway?" I shot back. "That's on you. But at least you'll have a fighting chance." My pulse quickened. The desperation was clawing at me again, telling me to take the offer, to just try one more time. But then a stronger part of me, the part that still had some shred of dignity, pushed back. "Fuck off," I said quietly. Mike's eyes narrowed. "What did you just say?" I said, "Fuck off. I'm not taking your money." The air around us grew tense. Mike took a step closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You think you're better than me? You think you're walking out of here without consequences?" I stood my ground, though my legs felt like jelly. "Yeah, I am." We stared each other down, the noise of the casino fading into the background. I thought he might actually hit me, but before anything could happen, another voice interrupted. "Hey, that's enough." We both turned to see a tall, broad-shouldered man approaching us. He looked like a regular, probably someone who'd seen this kind of scene play out before. "Mind your business," Mike snapped. "It is my business when I see someone getting cornered," the man said firmly. He looked at me. "You all right?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm good." Mike glared at both of us, his jaw tightening. For a moment, I thought he might push it further, but then he scoffed and stepped back. "Fine. Have it your way," he muttered. But don't come crying to me when you're out on the street." With that, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. The stranger turned to me. "You need to get the hell out of here. Guys like him don't forget faces." I nodded again, too shaken to say much. "Thanks. Don't mention it," he said, patting me on the shoulder. "Take care of yourself." The drive home was a blur. My head pounded with every mistake I'd made, every lie I'd told. The weight of $135,000 in losses bore down on me like a crushing tidal wave. I had no money, no inheritance, and no clue how to get out of this mess. I glanced at my phone. Texts and missed calls were piling up, friends asking about their loans, lenders demanding payments. I knew I was done. The nightmare had only $1,000. The last of it disappeared the moment I walked out of that casino, leaving behind not just my money, but my entire life as I knew it. The next day, I got a call from the lender. They weren't wasting any time. My apartments, the ones my uncle had worked his whole life to leave me, were being foreclosed. I knew I couldn't stop it. The debt was too massive, and I had no way to cover it. But worse was what came next. Megan found out. I had no choice but to tell her everything. The debt, the apartments, the lies about where I'd been going at night. The truth hit her like a freight train. "How much?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. $135,000, I muttered, unable to meet her eyes. She just sat there, stunned. I waited for the explosion, for the yelling and accusations, but it never came. She didn't even cry. "I trusted you," she said quietly. "I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me?" "I thought I could fix it," I said, desperation creeping into my voice. "I didn't want to worry you. You thought you'd gamble away our future," she snapped, her voice shaking now. "Do you hear yourself? You sound like some addict." I know. I messed up, but we can get through this. I'll get help. I'll make it right." She shook her head, standing up. We can't. You destroyed everything, Alex. There's no coming back from this." She grabbed her purse and keys, pausing in the doorway. "Don't call me. I'm done." And just like that, she was gone. The wedding was canceled the next day. Her parents were furious. They didn't bother hiding their contempt when they spoke to me. "You're a goddamn coward," her father said outside my apartment. "My daughter deserves better than some liar who gambles away his life savings." I had no defense. Everything he said was true. Things spiraled quickly after that. Word got around about the debt and the canceled wedding. Friends who used to be close started distancing themselves. Ryan, my best friend, gave me a cold goodbye over the phone. "Man, I don't know who you are anymore," he said. "I've got enough shit in my life without dealing with this. You need help." "I'm getting help," I said quietly. "Good, but I can't be around for this. Take care of yourself." He hung up, and that was the last I heard from him. I tried to hold on to the apartments, but it was hopeless. The foreclosure notice came within weeks, and I was forced to pack up what little I had left. I bounced between couches, borrowing space from people who barely tolerated me. Most didn't ask questions. They already knew. Eric, my cousin, eventually let me crash in his spare room. "You're lucky I'm not as pissed as everyone else," he said as I carried my duffel bag inside. "But this is temporary. You need to get your shit together." "Yeah, I know," I mumbled. For weeks, I drifted through life in a fog. I had no job, no money, and no direction. Every night I lay awake, replaying the same scenes in my mind. Megan walking out, the apartment slipping away, the cold, unforgiving lights of the casino. I hated myself for what I'd done, but I didn't know how to start over. Eventually, I hit rock bottom, and it was only then that I realized I couldn't climb out alone. I found a therapist who specialized in gambling addiction. The first session was brutal. I didn't want to admit how bad things were, but she saw right through me. "You were trying to control something," she said. "You felt trapped by your life, by the wedding. The expectations in gambling gave you an escape. But that control was an illusion." It hit harder than I expected. She was right. I wasn't just chasing money. I was trying to outrun my own fear of failure. It wasn't an overnight fix. Nothing about rebuilding your life is. But little by little, I started making changes. I got a part-time job at a warehouse to keep myself afloat. I cut off contact with the people I owed money to, letting debt counselors handle the negotiations. Megan didn't return my calls. I couldn't blame her. I had broken her trust in ways that couldn't be repaired with a simple apology. One night, I found myself sitting on the balcony of Eric's apartment, looking out over the city skyline. The light stretched out endlessly before me, distant and unreachable. It was a reminder of how far I had fallen. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel hopeless. I was still here, still standing, barely but standing. I knew I'd carried the weight of this mistake for a long time. The debt, the friendships I'd lost, the scar I'd left on my relationship with Megan, those things wouldn't just disappear. But I wasn't going to let them define me forever. This was rock bottom, and the only way left to go was up.